What's going on, guys? In this video, I'm going to build these very large planters, and I'm going to style the video in a way where you can grab 5 fence pickets, follow along with me, and build one yourself. Let's go. So last spring I posted a video of these small planters I made out of 2 fence pickets, which, by the way, are selling extremely well right now. So if you haven't seen that video, be sure to watch that one after this one. Add that to your arsenal, post those on Marketplace. They are selling extremely well right now. The only downside to those ones is they're pretty small. So if people are looking for larger ones, you gotta have more available. These ones are 24 inches tall and about 15 inches square. So these are very large. They're perfect for like in front of a garage, a patio, something where people want larger ones. And springtime is the time to sell this stuff. I'm telling you, women go ape shit over this stuff. So go grab yourself 5 fence pickets, which by the way, are only $1.97 a piece right now. So for about $10 in material, you can build these. As I said, I'm gonna do this video in kind of like a follow along style. So let's go. Alrighty, I got my 5 fence pickets. And to start off, what I like to do right off the bat is just take my orbital sander with an 80 grit pad on and just sand over these really quickly just to smooth them out. Also, if you guys don't have an orbital sander, these little things are awesome. You buy the same pads for the orbital sander. It's just a styrofoam sanding mouse. I get it on Amazon and it's only like $7. So I just put a aggressive pad on. That's all you gotta do. And it makes it smooth. So that's a lot cheaper alternative. I'm using the orbital sander because I got one. Another thing this is going to help do is it's going to help it take the stain better. I am leaving a little bit of rough cut there just because I like that look. So it'll help it take stain better. It's also going to help the glue joints stick a lot better because the glue tends to not stick well to the rough surface. Alright, we are sanded smooth. Next up, take 2 of your pickets over to the miter saw. We're going to start cutting them down to their lengths. Now I do cut these cut lengths in a specific way to maximize the material because as I said, we're building these with 5 fence pickets. So I just cut it in a way where there's no waste. But if you don't really care about that, you can cut the cut lengths however you want. I'll leave the cut lengths in the description and you can jump ahead to the assembly portion of this video. I'll organize the video in chapters so you can jump around to wherever you want to go. Alright, the first thing I like to do with the miter saw, and this is going to go for all the pickets I start with, is get rid of that factory edge. So just square them up. Just take as little as possible off, like an inch off. I'm going to start off with the longest cut length that we have to do, and that is 24 inches. So I'll set a stop at 24 inches. With 2 pickets stacked on top of each other, make your first cut 24 inches. Remove 1 picket and make 1 more at 24 inches. Next cut lengths you'll need, you're going to take a full 3rd picket, stack what's left of your 1st and 2nd picket. You're going to want to make your stop block 22 inches. Okay, so with it all set up, 3 stacked on top of each other, your first 2 partials and a full one, and you can go through and cut all of them, as many as you can to 22 inches. It's going to come out at 6 of them at 22 inches. So when I'm cutting these at the miter saw, any of the excess from your cutoffs, I like to set aside to the left of my miter saw. We're going to be using a couple of these pieces in the end to add a couple bells and whistles to the planter box. Okay, I'm going to grab picket number 4. Square it up and cut 1 more at 22 inches. That's going to give you a total of 7 at 22 inches long. We're still on picket number 4 here. Make 1 board 16 1/4. Okay, with the rest of picket number 4, to finish this off, we're going to cut 2 out of this at 13 1/2. Lastly, at the miter saw for now, take picket number 5, cut 3 at 12 1/4. With what's left out of picket number 5, just set that aside for now. With your cut lengths all set, now we're going to start moving over to the rip cuts. So take your 3 24-inch pieces you started with, start with 2 of them, set your fence to 2 inches, and cut 4 of them at 2 inches wide. Make sure your cutoffs you set aside, because we're doing them next. Okay, with those cut, we're going to want to switch our fence to 1 3/8. Alright, so with your leftover of what you just cut out of those boards, you can get 2 at 1 3/8, and then you cut 2 more out of your full one. Okay, with these first 8 pieces cut, at this point I like to start labeling them just to keep everything clear and on track, because you can lose track if it's all just in a big pile. So I just take painter's tape at this point, take a Sharpie, just put a little arrow, and these are going to be your lag assemblies. Now we're going to move on to our 22-inch lengths, and included in this 22-inch length is our leftover piece from the previous cuts. But as you remember, this is 24 inches, so make sure you cut this down to 22 inches. Then you can add it to this. Alright, so these are going to make up our upright pieces, and as you probably saw in the beginning of the video, my upright pieces, I have 3 different widths, just to give it a little extra added look. If you want to make this part easier, you can make all these rips to 1.5 inches. So make all your uprights 1.5 inches. It's all going to go together the same in the end. I just have 3 separate widths that I'm going to be doing, but if you want to keep this easy, make them all 1.5 inches, and you'll only need 24 at 1.5 inches if you do that. But moving on to what I'm going to do, I have 4 wide uprights. They're going to be in the middle of each one, and those are going to be to 2.5 inches. So I got to cut 4 at 2.5 inches. Moving on to medium uprights, I'm going to bump the fence back to 1 3/8 and cut 8 medium uprights. 1 2 3 4, 1 2 3 4, 8 medium uprights. Okay, with everything set here, with what's left, you're going to cut 16 at 7/8. And just label uprights. Now you're going to want to take your 1 16 1/4 board as well as a 12 1/4. Set your fence to 2 inches and rip 4 of them at 2 inches. Label these 4 pieces trim and set aside. Alright, so with everything left, you got 2 at 13 1/2, 2 at 12 1/4. These are all going to get ripped to 2 3/4, and it's going to give you 8 of them at 2 3/4. Okay, so that'll give you 8 total. These are going to be your cross sections. Alright, our cut lengths are all made. Now it's time to start assembling. Okay, so to start, we're going to take 2 of your lag cuts. So these are 2-inch width and 24 inches long. So they're your wider lag cuts. So take 2 of them. Also, you're going to want to take 2 of your cross section pieces and make sure you're getting 2 longer ones. You've got 4 longer cross sections and 4 shorter ones. So make sure the longer cross sections go with the wider legs. Okay, so take your 2 24-inch lengths, put them together so they're even, and you're going to want to measure 2 inches up. Make a mark on both of them with a square. That'll be your bottom. Now, take your cross section and you're just going to make one more reference mark. Put it flush on the outside and then just make a mark. Go all the way to the top, make it flush again, and make another mark. Then do the same on this. At this point, you're going to want to get some glue. Make sure it's a good exterior grade glue. I've got Gorilla Glue, which is good for interior as well as exterior. Then you're also going to want an 18 gauge brad nailer with 1-inch brad nails. If you don't have a brad nailer, just use 1-inch screws or 1-inch finish nails and hammer them in. Okay, so this, like I said, is going to be the bottom of the planter box. What you're going to want to do is take a cross section, and these lines that you marked is where your cross sections are going to get glued and brad nailed into. So just put a little glue here and then just brad nail it in there. Same on this side. Flip it around. Now this is the top of your planter box, so just put glue here and here, and then you can glue this one straight up flush with the top. Okay, set this piece aside for now. Now repeat that with your 2 leftover cross pieces that are longer, as well as your 2 2-inch by 24-inch width. And then after you do that, you're going to want to do the same exact thing, but do it with your shorter cross pieces as well as your thinner lag assemblies. Alright, so basically these are going to make up your 4 side panels. These 2 smaller ones with the cross connectors that are smaller in length, and then the 2 lag assemblies that are 1 3/8 rather than 2-inch is going to fit in between the 2-inch assemblies. It'll all make sense once we put it together. Alright, at this point we got 4 separate panels. 2 of them are smaller, 2 of them are wider. And now it's time to start putting the spindles or the uprights on them. Now, even though these are larger panels, with what's in between the legs, they are going to be the same. So that's 10 3/4, a little over, 10 3/4, a little over. That's going to make the placement of the uprights the same on all the panels. So basically what I've done is take one of your scrap cutoffs and cut it to 1/4 inch on your table saw. That's the exact measurement you need between the uprights. And earlier when I said you can cut all of your uprights to 1.5 inches, that's the same. So you will need 6 for each panel. 6 at 1.5 inches, and you just use the same 1/4 inch spacing. If you're using a different width uprights like I am, you put in your spacer, take a narrow one, bead a glue on each side, and then just brad nail it in place. You might be a little off on your length. The bottom will never get really seen, so just make sure the top is flush. Now get a medium upright. Just make sure your nail holes are kind of in line. It just makes it look a little better in the end. Now we're going to do another narrow. And then in the middle is going to be our wide one. So the pattern I'm using for the multiple width uprights is I'm going narrow to medium upright, back to narrow upright, and then your middle one is your wide upright. And then you finish it back off with narrow, medium, narrow. If your spacing on the last one is not exact, just split the difference. You'll never even notice. There you go. One panel down. Now repeat that on the next 3. Alright, next we're going to want to start putting this together. I've got 6 by 1 inch wood screws. This is just what I got, but if I were you, I would use 1 1/4 inch long for this. It's just going to have a little more holding power. But basically what we're going to do now is you take your panel with the wider legs, and then what you're going to do is take the narrower one, and what that's going to do is your narrower one is going to bump into this one. So it's going to go like that. And it fits right in between there. Then what you want to do is just pre-drill 3 of them for screws and just put screws in. You can also wood glue it as well, just for a little extra holding power. So what I'll do is just wood glue right here, just a strip. Then lift it up, fit them together. Top. Just make sure you're pre-drilling. If you don't pre-drill, this stuff will split super easily. So what I like to do is one at the top, one roughly in the middle, and then one towards the bottom. So there you go. Then you can put this one in, and just make sure when you put them all together, just have the screws even. It'll just look a lot better. Just make sure when you're assembling these and you are using glue, just make sure to have a wet towel ready, because any squeeze out you're going to want to wipe up. Okay, we are rolling right along on this. Next up, you're going to want to put the top trim pieces on. Alright, trim pieces are pretty easy. Just glue on these solid parts here all the way around. And then your shorter ones are going to fit on the inside of these. And then I just brad nail them. These holes here I'm going to fill, so don't worry too much about that. And then your long ones will fit on either side. If it's a little overhang, no biggie, because we're going to clean that up during the final sanding. Alright, once you get to this point, this is the size pot I'm going to be using in here. So basically I want this to sit a couple inches down. So what I'm going to do is just take some measurements, mark what I need, and then we'll put the bottom floor in. But the good thing about this is you can pretty much use any size pot you want. Alright, so out of the leftover scraps you have, measure where you want to put your bottom, however long your pot is. You want your pot to sit, you know, roughly below this lip probably. So out of what was left over, I cut a couple pieces on each side, and then I cut a couple full pieces that will fit in there to be the floor. And if your planter's weak from side to side, screw them down and it'll stiffen it right up. Alright, so this planter can pretty much be used as is right now, but I'm going to give it a little extra something. So, because these top trim pieces are only brad nailed down, they're glued and brad nailed, and people tend to move planters around a lot, decide where they like them, what looks best. So what I'm going to do is add some handles. I don't want them lifting from this trim, so to reduce the chance of that happening, I'm going to be using these cutoffs from the picket, cut them down to 3 inches, and they're going to go right here. And then I'm going to put decorative rope handles on them. So basically all I'm going to do is screw this to here, drill 2 holes, cut a rope 24 inches long, tie a knot on one end, put it through one hole, make a handle, put the other end through the other hole, tie another knot, boom, you got a handle. Now at this point I like to take a little bit of wood glue and just put it in all these top trim brad nail holes. I don't worry about the side ones. Once it gets weathered, you're never really going to see them anyway. Just these top ones I like to plug. So I'll do this, give it one quick sanding. As far as finish goes, I'm just using this Thompson water seal. I picked it up from Lowe's. It was like 20 bucks. You can use the planter as is without sealing it. The ones I did last year, I have not put anything on it. It's been over a year and they've held up really well. This will just give added durability, and I mix in a little bit of stain with this to darken it. And I just apply it with these little brushes. They're super cheap. They're like 50 cents from Harbor Freight. And then I just throw them out after. Now as far as pricing these, because I know people are going to ask, I usually don't get on the subject of pricing just because people on YouTube watch it from all over the globe. And every location's different. I don't know what your competition is like where you live, what your lumber prices are like. Your profit margins might be different. As I said, each fence picket's $1.97 a piece, and I use 5 of them. So it's about $10 in lumber just to make these. And for a planter this size, I would probably start off at $100 each for these. Because like I said, a planter this size is kind of difficult to find, and where else are you getting something like this? But ultimately, pricing it's completely up to you. You build your own, make it your own, do what you need to do. That'll pretty much do it for these large planters. As I said, Watch this video next that I made last year. Those are the smaller ones, and I just relisted mine on Marketplace, and I'm getting messages like crazy for them. So that's probably one right there. Give it a watch, and as always, I'll catch you in the next video. Bye guys.